Okay, today will be a really important video, and I hope I can get this all understandably through to you. As I'm more outside of culture, I'm starting to remember again. I'm getting my tools back. Like, these tools are somehow sentient. They vanish if you're in a state where you shouldn't use them, because they are powerful. And this sounds like a bad sales pitch, but I will explain it. What I have coming back right now is, I will make an analogy. Imagine you put your hand on something, and from your hand that's how I see it visually. There are yellow lines spreading from it, and like a pattern of, how do I describe it? Like, you know that scene from the movies where a virus is spreading through a computer system, or an alien thing is spreading through something? Like that, yellow glowing lines. And from that's basically the analogy. Now we make this paw or hand metaphysical. This means it is something you do. Like, you put your hand on something, you do something. You put your being to it. And like that, for me it is like that. I want to be calm, I want to explain this the right way and understandable. It is like a aligning of pattern. You put your being to something, the expression of yourself spreads through reality in those lines patterns, and from that I personally see it like that, visually, you get a 3, 4, 5 multi-dimensional, in color, how do I call it, visualization of how the patterns of what part of reality you are working on right now, and with that flow of reality that's always happening, you have a direct access to that part of reality, where every instruction you give it, every impulse of your being, is directly translated into a change of reality. But this is only half of the tour. The visualization that is happening, the putting your paw on it, and it's spreading, and it's showing it to you, is your part. From that, there is also something you need to do, because that alone will do nothing. It's just a visualization, a fantasy, a dream. From that, and it took me a long time to get that right, you yourself need to be the carrier for the metaphysical fire, the alchemical fire, the carrying out agent of that action for it to happen. Changing reality is a big and in science fiction, not possible in logical reality thing. But I'm not thinking the complicated. If you go outside, you take a shovel and you dig a hole. You change reality. If you go inside your room, you move your table from left to right, you change reality. You yourself doing things in the world is the agent of changing reality. At every point of your existence, right now, you have the opportunity to change everything around you. Of course, there are limitations to that. But you don't know those limitations until you try it. McKenna said it greatly. You could walk out of this door right now and go as far as your fucking courage will carry you. And that's so powerful. And we forget that all the time. Like, if you have the knowledge, you can change everything around you all the time. Imagine what you could do. Literally everything. And if you have to that, what I have, or is coming back to me, that you have a visual interface showing you, okay, I'm aligned with that and I can change it and I see it visually. That is a philosophy. That is a philosopher's stone kind of tool. And I will also tell you where those tools are coming from. Because I am in the position to be able to explain where they are coming from. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And it took me many tries and having to dissolve my brain and mentally die and come back and try again and do it again and do it again a bunch of times. Like really a lot. To understand why that is like that and be able to put it in words and explain it. Because as soon as you try to get close to that and put it into language, your brain starts to dissolve. Your psyche just melts. And you know these tools. You know they exist. And I can just make a simple example. A lot of people know. There is this occurrence where you are in a high state of mental ambiguity or mental stress. And you look into someone's eyes. And for a moment, you have complete communication between the two people. Like you can see into the person's soul. And that is a tool which's existence is clear. Like you can't, it's not logical, but you can't deny it because it just happened. It's that kind of tool. And I will explain what kind of tools they are. These old tools work, how's the word? Intuitively. The oldest tools have the best pattern of actualizing them, pattern of executing them. And they need it. This is causing me a bit of mental anguish, but I will try to get it through. Maybe I will take a break, but this is important to have it noted somewhere. These tools are something old. And I wanted to say something, but I'm already forgetting it. Like, these tools are, if they are hard to describe, because they don't want to be described. Let me breathe. These tools, the oldest tools, work intuitively. Because if you have a tool with that kind of power that can literally change reality, and you know how strong these tools are, if you can follow from the example, if you know the thing with the eyes and have experienced that, you know there is no going around that. It's a tool that is so mighty, it will override everything else. It is unbound by time, like you're looking into a person's eyes. You have that connection. And while that connection is happening, time is zero. This means time is infinite. It could be 1,000,000 years or half a second. But real time, it's almost none. It's a moment. So these tools work on a level of magnitude where you need that kind of access. You can't just have a slow execution time. If you have a slow execution time with that kind of tool, that could cause mayhem and destruction. But also that means if every part of what you are is directly translated, then if you get into the wrong place, it will be directly executed. And that is bad. That is really, really fucking bad. And if you could follow me till now, you will understand why. Let me breathe. This is hard mental terrain. But it's important terrain. And I wanted to say something, but I already forgot it again. Okay. I will explain where these tools are coming from. 40 minutes. It's not bad. These tools are alignment of pattern. Our lives are really, really short, and we don't remember the past. We don't remember the generations before us. And what these tools are, they are tools from the generations before us. Like, these are really fucking old tools. And as soon as you align with that, let's call it dynamic or flow or whatever word you like, pattern, line. Line is a good word. You have families over time, over generations, breeding certain traits just by selecting of mating. And by that process, a direction is chosen. And as soon as you follow into that line and become a representation of that tradition, of your culture, you get access to these these tools. What does that mean? What am I saying? I got fur in my nose. Yay! These are tools we find over 2000 or more years. Those are really fucking old and powerful tools. And we, like, how to explain that? Those concepts are really, really hard to put in words, and they will melt your brain as you talk about them. So I'm doing my best to make them understandable. Because you need the perspective over 2000 years to understand why these tools do what they do. It's the concept of if you move your desk from left to right, that is changing reality. Now you imagine people have been doing that for 2000 years. And they have been developing tools that do that really, really, really fucking well. How do I explain that? And these tools are genetically somehow in us. It might not be genetics. It was called bloodlines until we discovered, okay, it's not that. Then we called it genetics. Then we were like, okay, it's probably not genetics, and that's where we are now. We don't know. Genetics is the currently societal acceptable thing. I like bloodlines because it's more explainable, but it got a kind of side taste to it. Where was I going? So these tools are somehow in us, and they are, how do I call it? Every generation is giving the information which is best for survival, let's call it, to the next generation, to go Darwinistic. So if you got a tool like that, that is certainly given to the next generation, that is somehow genetically encoded and given to the next generation. But that does not mean you always have access to that. There's these tools are somehow sentient. Like an AI, however that works. I have no fucking clue. Maybe a bit, but I don't want to make a statement about that right now. At least. They kind of lock you out if you don't align, how do I call it? With the directions of where your genetic line is going. How do I explain that really well? If you have someone following a current generation political ideology, for instance, a moral ideology, you have the problem of such a tool being used that could be really dangerous. So you want it to be aligned with the overall goal. Else you will have that whole genetic line falling apart. There could be multiple explanations, I'm guessing too. Like you have this kind of forward thrust which has its own dynamic going forward. So a deviation from that would take enormous energy. So they only work best in that stream of direction. However that works, I have no idea. Okay. How could I make it any clearer? An overview would be good. These tools are observable. We know they exist. They socially don't exist. Like this, that meeting of eyes with the connection. That is not spoken about. People experience that. They can't explain it, but they can't deny it. But exploring it would probably dissolve the whole construct of the worldview. So it's ignored as something that's just a part of reality. So the connection is never made that there are more tools like that. And for me personally, there is nothing else you could offer me that would be more valuable. Like, this is like using tools of the gods. Those are how to explain that? Let me breathe. Is there another great example of these tools? I have lower variations of it, but they are not as clear. The thing with the eyes is really clear. Girls know these tools. They use them all the time. They are normal for them. They are just things girls do. Guys are, are a bit more on the more ignoring that thing side. For girls, it's probably the changing of hormone levels, which causes a dissolving of consciousness on a more recurring pattern, which allows this. These tools are stored in the unconscious. So if you dissolve your patterns, your conscious, you get more access to these tools. So if you're changing hormone levels, you get more often look at those tools. So they are kind of normal. That kind of plays into the social role of girls doing things but not speaking about them. Because if you speak about these things, it kind of destroys the magic. And what that means, firstly, it kind of dissolves most of the tools. Like it breaks the spell. But also if you try to explain it, there's a high risk you will take some damage from it. And it took me a long time to be able to do this. Is there anything else I want to say? I feel like I'm talking in circles. And I'm saying tools of the gods because they are, in a sense. Like a god is a higher pattern of being which we can't understand. like an archetype is a higher pattern of being so complex we can't understand it. So we call it an archetype and give it an image, which is not the same thing, but we can imagine an image. It's a general direction, an arrow pointing there, because we can't describe it. Where was I going? I forgot. Somewhere with arrows and archetypes. I was talking about these tools. How do I say it? And these tools, because they are so old, they have a way higher access. It's like these things have access levels. Like if we have someone 20 minutes that is doing some psychological manipulation, like a marketer or something, a manager or something, these tools will always override them, because if someone is trying to reroute some little structure and make something happen, it's a completely different thing as if you take a pattern, multiple patterns, complexer than you can imagine, align them and manifest them through yourself and hit reality with that. That will first of all hit the thing and rearrange things like mad, and it will have ripple effects throughout the whole structure. So the person doing some little manipulation will stand there and look at you like, what the fuck was that? It's the analogy of like someone hitting something with a hammer compared to someone using a comet to strike something. It's like not comparable in the least. I should calm down a bit. And I got fur in my nose. So as you are more inside of culture, you forget these tools, because you're probably in a state where you shouldn't use them, because you're worried about the dishes or something else. You don't want to be rewriting parts of reality like that, with that kind of force, and be worried about something else. Like, you can understand why why that is a bad idea. And my voice is dying. And it's like voice. And these tools somehow are way more thought out than anything you have ever seen. It's like you have the tool, you have a AI, which makes them somehow sentient and locks you out if you are not in the right mind state. But you also got other tools which are complementary, and you can stack them on top of each other, and you get what I'm saying? Let me put it differently. if only 10%, if only 1% of what I'm saying is true. And it definitely is if you have experienced the I thing. You know what I'm talking about. Is there something else to say? For me personally, if you have the comparison between offering me a job and offering me those tools, it's clear which ones I choose. And I have the feeling, if I'm in a social structure, of course, if you use these tools, you get the confidence that comes along with using such tools. And if you are in a social structure that follows you, because the unconscious of the other people somehow recognizes, okay, something is off here. Why is that? You only get a confidence like that by using those tools. The persons themselves might even not even know those tools or remember them. But the subconscious, the unconscious, knows these tools. It's using them all the time without the person knowing. Because these are just normal things that happen. But you usually don't have access to them. So I feel like it's the shadow of those tools that still follows you, even if you self are locked out. And I think that's my fascination with where I'm going. Because even if I don't remember them, my unconscious will still push me into that direction because it knows these tools exist. And it knows as soon as I remember they exist, I will align with my unconscious and go, yes, right, thank you. You know the feeling that there's something missing. It's the feeling that the 2,000 years of tradition, where you are coming from, why you are born, how your family survived through all those iterations of having children, the tools that go along with that whole tradition, that is missing. Those tools are missing. Like, you know you should have access to that. It's your birthright to have access to that. But you don't. And that's why that is why it feels off. And now that I'm getting more stable and more away from culture, I remember again. I remember where I was going and what I was doing. And I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm remembering the language. I'm remembering again. Because there is no fear in that place. If you have those tools at your disposal, what are you going to fear? Like, you got the universe itself on your side. With a tool like that, the problems you have within culture are not even worth speaking about. Like, you could literally do anything. You could walk out of your door and do whatever. I'm speaking in circles. How long? 35 minutes. It's a long video, but it's important. And this may sound really metaphysical and somewhere off the clouds. But the good thing is, you don't have to believe me. Go and test it. Those are intuitive tools. If you want to find them, you can find them and test them. What would be the best way to test them? Take the responsibility of your tradition. What does that mean? Figure out who you are and stabilize your family. Those are just not necessities. They kind of are, but to certain degrees, because those are parts of how stable you are as a person. How do I say that? Your family probably holds the manuals to how you use those tools. You can go on yourself and find out how you use them. That's always an option. You can just go and try and error, and do things like I did. But your family probably has traditions where they are encoded. So you could use both ways if you want to. But I want to give a more direct and testable option. And I will probably have to think about that. It's probably also genetic. I have the tools visual in multiple dimensions, and I can feel them while I use them. But I also am a strange person, and the psychological trait for that is openness to experience. If you use the ocean model, which is the current one. So you can explain this from multiple angles, but it is possible that only certain bloodlines or genetic lines, or however you want to call it, have a focus on these tools. And other genetic bloodlines have a focus on other tools. I'm speaking from my experience and what I have found out. Maybe you are built different. It's always possible. I should really end the video. Well, those are basically just disclaimers. How do I say that the best way? If you are looking for these tools, they are intuitive tools. This means you will have a feeling for where you will find them. Intuitive means feeling. I can't explain this easier. Like, you literally have, it's like with the windmills in the last video. It's like there is a glowing beacon of where you need to go. Go! And you will find. It's not hard. I got fur in my nose and my voice is dying. This is a really strange video. These tools are mostly not spoken about, encoded, or sometimes you find them, well, they are also encoded. Like you find them somewhere, but they have a specific term which kind of describes them, but not really its magnitude. Yeah. I just want to note their existence, because I will forget them again too. Those are unconscious tools. That is also important. That is the psychological reference of where they are. The unconscious is every pattern that is so big you can't explain it. You can't even understand it. It's the collection of everything that happened before you. Probably also everything that happens after you. Time is a strange thing. Like, I have tried a long time to understand time. And this will sound really strange. And I wouldn't believe it myself if it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't have had happened. Where I just gave up was where I could literally see myself just for a moment, which was probably eternity again, influence myself in the past. And I remembered myself in the past having an interaction with myself. And that was where I was standing there like, oh fuck, that's how time works. Time is not linear. I just saw it. I can't deny that. I could never explain it or show it to anyone. Well, fuck. Where was I going with this? I'm talking about time. I'm getting totally off track. I think it was important to know that these tools exist. Because if you don't know they exist, you will not find a cultural reference to them. Within the spaces where people know they exist, people just know. They don't talk about them. They just use them. And where they don't exist, people don't talk about them because they don't know them. And they are hard to describe. I think that's all for today. That was a really strange video. It will not help everyone. But the people that will understand what I'm saying will get a really, really big value out of it. And that's important. Fuck all the other people. The people that can use those tools, those are important. Because the magnitude of these tools implies the importance to these people. And theoretically, I think at least, everyone can use them. But I think with different bloodlines or genetic lines, different kind of tools were built. Because you have these generations of traditions with different adaptations, different interfaces, different patterns of alignment. I am talking in circles again. What I can say is, there is nothing that compares to using those tools. No amount of money you could offer that would be worth giving up these tools. That's how, that's the scale they are operating on. Okay, thank you. My brain is melting. Bye. I hit button.